Welcome and thank you for joining me. This is Laurie of Laurie's Heirloom Sewing. Today's been one of those days where everything is absolute chaos, which is okay, I don't mind. I had started a video earlier. Well, everything was going great. And then I had an intrusion. So I kind of stopped. I just said, you know what, never mind. But what I was working on was sewing a little leather label on that says handmade. It's got a little bird with a little flower twig that I'm going to be using. I wish I could find dandelion themed little twiggies or something for my labels, but I haven't been able to, and I kind of invested a little bit too much time in that whole process. So I'm going to do something else. But right now I'm just going to get this little label stitched on here. They are sometimes easy and sometimes not so easy. I am going to tell you that we are in the middle of a pretty heavy-duty windstorm here in the Pacific Northwest. It is February the 7th, 2020, in case this date needs to be commemorated in any way. I don't know. It's 2 days after my birthday, which, by the way, was wonderful. I wanted to tell you guys that I did get the video editing software, and I've been practicing. There's a lot to it. It's not easy, but I'm learning, and I'm learning pretty quickly what I need to do and how I want it to, how I want to learn. I have my little notebook and I'm taking notes and I'm practicing with my own videos so that I'm getting that hands-on experience. So today was learning how to actually drop the video into the editor, and then how to add text. And then the next thing that I want to learn ASAP is how to speed up, how to change the speed of the video so that when I do run into a slow spell where I'm sewing or I'm doing something that's repetitive that you guys don't need to see, I can either cut it or I can speed it up. So that's my plan. Now what I was doing here earlier was I stitched this little label on, and there's a knot where I knotted my my needle thread so that I could start stitching, and my initial plan was to cut that knot off, but due to the intrusion, I forgot that I wanted to lock this stitch, and then I would have a flat section of thread instead of a knot. But the knot is behind this little leather label, so it's not going to interfere with the front of the bag that I'm making for my sister. We've already done 2 of these, and I did a video on the construction of one, so I'm not going to have this on video. That we don't need to do that. I did want to show you that I found a dandelion stamp. I don't know the first thing about stamping. Apparently you pull this off. It's like this. It's kind of like silicone or something. And it's dandelions, but it was the closest thing. It looks like this, except it's in stamp form. This is just like a piece of plastic with this printed on it. So, and then I wanted it to be silver because I'm a silver person. I have so much silver, it's ridiculous. So I purchased this that arrived today. It's a silver stamp pad. And I'm just gonna see what happens if you, there's really no way to hold it. It's like, what do you do? Anybody that knows how to do stamping, let me know, because I'm just not a stamper. Let's see what happens. I think that's on there. So then what do? You just smish it onto this is just a scratch piece of paper that I happen to have. Boink. Oh, okay. So it kind of came out. But I wish that I could just have one dandelion. I don't like the idea of cutting this, but I really just want one dandelion, not a whole bunch of dandelions. Oh, I wonder if I just put ink on one of the dandelions, like this guy right here. Then I wouldn't have to cut it apart. Oh, that didn't work very well. Okay. I wonder how, ooh. Well, if I covered up all the other dandelions, oh, it still makes kind of a mess because you've got ink on this piece of paper now. Well, I might have to cut it. I like the one in the middle. I don't know. I truly don't know. But evidently you just kind of store it in between these little pieces of paper. And you have your ink pad. I'll have to figure out, maybe if I clip it, I'll just use one of the, I don't use these big clips very often because they don't work very well for me. So I could just do that. It's all clipped together. That's not the drawer I want to use. Oh, perfect. I can use this drawer right here. I do like the way that looks, and the silver ink is kind of pretty. I suppose the other thing I could do is I could just print the whole, or stamp, like that. Stamp the whole thing, and then just cut out the one I like, which is this little guy right here. He's the perfect size, and it's mainly, this is the one that I bought the whole stamp for. It's just this little bitty guy right here. It's not working very well. Okay, well, anyway, and in case you were part of the video, if you watched the video where I lost my seam ripper, obviously I have located it. So, I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to let the video camera roll, and I'm going to go ahead and work on this because it's Friday. My daughter is bringing over her dogs for me to babysit, and I need to work on the jacket, but I also have to get this done, because if I don't get this done, then I really can't work on the jacket. It's just too late in the month of February for me not to get this jacket done. So if you'd rather just watch this video where I mark and put this together, that's good. All right. And I'll just tell you what I'm doing. So I'm going to mark down 1 inch from the little divot on the heart. 1 square is 1 inch. I'm going to take this little pencil. I prefer to use, well, that was loud and obnoxious. I prefer to use, oh, what's it called? Heat erase. There we go. Heat erase ink. Because once this is put together, I don't want to have to wash it to deal with it. I'm just gonna, okay, so straight down from exactly where that little point is, I'm going to measure down 1 inch. And then I'm going to try to get this line exactly straight. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a dot, and then I'm going to put another dot where I had this ruler, and I'm going to measure down to the dot. Okay, so that is right there, and then I'm going to check to see if this dot over here is even remotely close. No, it's not. Okay. So if we fold this in half, and that's one of the steps that I didn't do on the other two that I made. I'm trying to figure out a way to make it simple, very, very simple. The one thing I need to mention is when you cut out a fabric, when you cut out a heart shape, the vast majority of the cut surface is on a bias or on a curve or in some way is going to compromise the integrity of this edge simply by virtue of being cut not at a straight angle where the warp and the weft of the fabric are not stressed. So that's basically called a bias cut, and it's very stretchy. It makes the fabric extremely stretchy and kind of hard to manage and deal with. So I recommend that you are very careful. I can see that that's okay. What I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out exactly, I guess if we fold it and then kind of press, we'll get a fold, and then we can mark where that fold is, and that should be a straight line. And of course it's all dependent on how far down you measure from that point. You do have to make sure that your heart shape is, I'm going to go based off of the tip down at the very bottom. Okay, I'm going to trim this because it's not perfectly straight, or it's not perfectly matching up. I recommend that you use a rotary cutter to do this if you have to do it too. And I don't really know why I'm having to do this. It's been a while. I think maybe they've been stretched from ironing on the heat and bond. That's quite possible. Okay, so I've got that now. I'm using this little dot that I made. I'm going to fold it right along that line. That's still not straight. Okay, let's get this absolutely perfect. There we go. There we go. All right. Yep, so just, you know, trim it so that both sides are at least as close to identical as you can possibly get them under the circumstances. This will change the outer fabric as well. Okay, so I've got that matched up there. I'm going to fold this down on that dot, press it with my fingers, and then along that fold, I'm going to just kind of barely draw a line. It doesn't have to go all the way across. I just mainly need it over here. And then you can do the, you can just kind of bring that line off to that side right there. So as long as this over here, this dot and this dot, or this mark and this mark are the same, then you're in good shape. All right, now I'm going to stack these and see what the size difference is, since I did have to trim one. Okay, there it is right there. Okay, so just give, well, okay. I am going to have to redo my mark because it's this, the one that I marked is bigger than the one that I was about to mark. So I'm doing some trimming. I don't know if you can hear that. That is literally a windstorm in Puget Sound, Washington on February the 7th of 2020. And I mean the trees and the, just everything. And my face right now is currently, it is wind burned from the last wind storm that we had. I don't know if I can handle it. Okay, I'm just going to draw this line, keeping this as straight as possible. Make a dot there. Okay, and then lift this up and make a dot on the other side and the other side of the heart. Okay, now that is important, and you do want those two, both pieces of the lining, you need that to match up. They need to be as close to identical as you can get them. Okay, so now because I had to do all this trimming, I want to make sure that these hearts are, you know, the same size as the lining. That's important. Okay. And they are quite a bit smaller. So I think moving forward in future plans of this particular project, one of the steps that I'm going to take is going to be, I'm just going to trim them down, to measure that out on both of the hearts. Well, let's be real here. It's not a heart, it's 4. It's not 2, it's 4. So we have the interior 2 hearts and the exterior 2 hearts. Okay, so I have clipped this to hold it together. And now I'm going to take my outer fabric and I'm going to attach it to the lining. Now I will say the reason I'm having such a size differential here is because this fabric is seersucker and it has almost like an accordion stretch. like smocked fabric. It's not, it doesn't lend itself to retracting once it's been, say, pressed. So if you're ironing it like I did, I wasn't ironing, I was pressing, but it definitely will change the shape, the size of your fabric when you use Seersucker. I was aware of that when I purchased it. So if you are using just a straight up cotton fabric that is not Seersucker, it's just a woven, non-stretchy cotton fabric, or even a wool, you shouldn't have the issue that I have had on all of the bags that I made, both the 2 that I've already completed and this one that I am currently working on with the Seersucker lining. It is quite a challenge and does require some specialized trimming and clipping, and I just recommend, if you're new to this type of sewing, that you don't choose a Seersucker. You can easily find a striped fabric, a cotton, that would look really good in lieu of the Seersucker. Okay, so I am marked there, and it is way off due to the change. So I'm going to take my ruler and do that measurement again. Okay, I want to go down 1 inch. Oh yeah, it's way off. Okay. Okay, so there. Yeah, no, that's good. It's on. It's right on. That one is the one that's off. Okay, yeah, it's... Alright. Need to make sure I'm in the right spot. And I do suggest that you take that time to double check if you have any doubt at all that the project you are working on is correct. You don't want to stitch it and then have everything, be off. Okay. And these little clips are extremely helpful for something along this line. It's like having, just extra hands. I didn't want anything to slip or slide. And I didn't want to have to, try to hold it while I was doing this. So that's why I think, if you can spend an extra few minutes, find either some clothespins or some hair clips or anything, even office type clips, binder clips, anything along that line would be very helpful to help hold your fabric together. Like I've got mine all clipped together here so that I can trim it and get it exactly, precisely matched up with each front piece. Okay. And again, if you find it difficult, just use a rotary cutter. That can be very helpful in a project like this where you might be struggling with trying to get 4 layers of fabric cut to the same size. That can be kind of aggravating. Right there. All right, so I have these matched up. I need to see if my measurement line on this is still, yeah, okay, that's not, and this is where you can really see that it's the Seersucker. And if you doubt the validity of that, I would definitely suggest that you go to a fabric store and check out a bit of, well, we'll just do a test because I'll have some fabric left over, and I can show you after I get this one put together. I'll have at least a piece big enough to show you the stretching and how that works. Okay. Ooh, all right. So now we've got these put together this way. I know they're marked correctly. I've got my tag sewn on. All right. So what we will do is put these right sides together. And then we are only going to stitch across the top, but I like to clip the bottom to keep it from moving. I've run across that a couple of times, and it doesn't matter if I put my clips on correctly or not. I mean, clearly that one was upside down. They're not going to hit the bed of the sewing machine. Okay. All right, so from there to there. So I'm going to clip below that. And this one I do want to have that on the proper side. Put my machine and needle down. And then starting on the line that I've drawn, put that there, I need to move this out of the way. That's too heavy. All right. Making sure that I have everything lined up as it should be. If you're not able to hold it, then just go ahead and throw in some pins. We all know what that's like. Okay. All right. Are we appropriately? Yes, we are. Okay. All right, so we're going to put the line that we start where we drew a line, we're going to set that underneath our sewing machine. And I'm doing about 1/4 inch, which is the width of my sewing machine foot. I'm in the needle down position with the machine set for just the default stitch length, which is 2.5. And I'm just going to sew. I am going to back up and then continue around. And I'm not in needle down. There we go. Now I am. When I get to the point, I'm going to raise my presser foot and pivot my fabrics and then begin to stitch again. I'm only going to go to that line, but then I'm going to back up and lock those stitches into place. Okay, I'll trim off my thread and on both sides. Remove these pins because, as you know, I can't stand getting stabbed. Remove these clips. Okay. And then we should have something that looks like this, and we will do the exact same thing to the other side. This has to be set up just like the other one. So right sides together. Push that back. And this is why I went ahead and stitched my label on. I didn't want to have this thread showing on the inside of the bag. So, I wanted to stitch it on the front of the bag with a single layer, just so that it wouldn't show, and that's why I did that. Okay, now I will clip and clip and clip the bottom edge. You can put as many or as few of these clips as you want. They're not going to go under the sewing machine foot, so there's no need to be particular about the way you do it. It's just that extra set of hands to hold everything together. Okay, and again, I'm going to start where this line that I drew, this line that I drew is located. 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to stitch, 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 and then back up, and then go forward and go all the way around. When I get to this little divot where the heart comes together, I'm going to pivot, raise my presser foot, pivot my fabrics, and then continue sewing after I drop my presser foot. And then just come around to this line. I think I came in just a little bit too much, but you know, it happens. I was looking out the window, kind of trying to keep an eye on the weather. All right, so now we have the two sections, a front and a back, and an inside and an outside. And that missed. Okay. All right, so here we have this and this. So as you can see, it looks a little funny, but it won't. All right, so before we stitch these two together, we need to look at what we've got here. We have two rounded sections of fabric that come to a point, and we need to clip into that point without clipping the stitching that we did on both. This helps the fabric move, which is what we want. Okay, now across the top of these two little bumps, all we have to do is just clip, and that will help that spread out and open when we fold it out to the proper side. Now you only have to do where it's extremely rounded. You don't need to do this part right here. You can if you want to, but it's not necessary. It will kind of follow suit with the rest of the fabric. The other thing you can do if you don't like clipping these curves is you can grade your seam allowance. And by that, I mean you can take your scissors and you can cut one, let's see if I can get this where you can see it. Let me drop the angle down just a little. Okay, and then zoom in. Okay. So right here I have these two pieces of fabric on this side of the seam that I just made. If I lift up one and I clip it close to that stitching line, like that, you can see that I've clipped the top layer but not the bottom layer. The bottom layer is still there. So if I clip this off and then clip just the bottom layer into the seam allowance, that often will help bulky turns lay out flatter. And as you become more familiar with sewing, you will understand a little bit better what that means. And I guess we could have a lesson on this at some point. If we were, for example, if we were sewing with wool or we were making a coat, you know, something with just oodles of layers with heavy interfacing and lining, then we could, you know, we could get that lesson in there. All right, so now I'm going to flatten this out. Let me redo the